All right, perfect. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
So what is your full name, first of all?
My full name is Chuck Park, although my legal name is Charles Young Charter Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, of course, we have permission to.
Get to the mic,
Oh,
bro.
right. Sorry. Well, of course, we have permission to record. Actually, first, my first question would be, tell me about your neighborhood, Flushing, like when you were young.
Yeah, so I was born in Flushing Hospital, and I went to church on Parsons Boulevard, this Korean Catholic church called St. Paul Cheonghasam. And so my biggest memories are usually around the weekends. The routine was usually Sunday Mass, and then you get out, and then right after Mass, your parents are hanging out, they're socializing in the church basement, they have whatever, church choir, meetings. And so that was like hours of freedom when I was in middle school and high school, where I'd go with my friends to first Northern Boulevard, and then sometimes you go to Samongak, this old Korean Chinese restaurant that used to be on Northern and Parsons. It's not there anymore. And then if we had a lot of time, we'd walk over to Main Street. And Main Street and right next to it, Union Street, were always like so active, so exciting. There was arcades where you could like put in a quarter, play Street Fighter Alpha 2. I don't know if you guys know that video game. There was a comic book store called Chameleon Comics right on Main Street. And even back then, it was interesting because like Main Street was mostly Chinese businesses. And then Union Street, right parallel to it, was mostly Korean businesses. And so you can get like flip-flop between getting like Korean food, kimbap, some other stuff on Union, but then you can walk over to Main Street and get there's a bunch of Chinese restaurants. And so that would be the perfect Sunday. You go to Mass, you have free time, you go to Samongak, and then you go to Main Street or Union Street and just hang out, play arcades, buy comic books, just walk around.
Yeah, I know. I know that you were pretty involved with like the Korean community when you were finding jobs. I know that after you worked as a diplomat, you worked at what was it, Minkwon Center? Yeah. How did that like shape your approach to community building and politics as a whole?
So I quit my job at the State Department in 2019. I was a U.S. diplomat for almost 10 years, appointed under President Obama. And I thought that was going to be my lifelong career. I thought, okay, I'm going to slowly build up. And one day I'm going to be U.S. ambassador to Korea. Starting as the child of Korean immigrants. And my parents, by the way, they were street vendors. And so coming up from like the child of immigrant street vendors to representing our country, for me, made me so proud. But Trump won the presidency. I thought that his vision of America was clearly very different from mine. And so when I saw family separation, I saw what he was doing to immigrants, I couldn't take it, so I quit. And I came back to Queens, and I was looking for something that would allow me to fight back. Like, how could I authentically fight back against Trump and fight for what I believe America and New York City and Queens stands for? And so I was looking for jobs, and I discovered that even in the Korean community, there was like a super progressive, super active community organization called the Minkwon Center for Community Action. Their office is right off Main Street. And they weren't just services. They weren't just helping people apply for Medicaid or Medicare. It wasn't just helping people with immigration service, which is they still do, free of charge. It was also an organization model, organizing. Like, it's not just, hey, we're going to help you with something. You ask us for help. We help you. Goodbye. It was, no, stay engaged. Let's build an organization. Let's build a membership together and then speak with one voice about issues that matter to us. And so I had never seen that before in the Korean community, except in maybe like older structures like churches or other civic groups. But seeing it as a second generation, seeing this organization that had a lot of people my age organizing us to speak out about civic issues, about political issues, was really exciting to see.
I want to ask you, QBL.
And on that note of like certain communities, right? I actually wanted to ask about my own community. I live in Queensboro Hill, right? And I wanted to ask first of all, how acquainted are you with Queensboro Hill, which is like also known as like South Flushing?
Um, I've hung out there. I've eaten there. I don't know like the best parks. I don't know the best restaurants. So tell me more about Queensboro Hill.
I mean, so it's basically anything below Casino Park and the Botanical Garden, bounded by like Corona Park to the west, and then like to the east. I think it's 16th Avenue. It goes all the way to 16th Avenue. Um,
Is Queens College considered part of that area?
well, it's
Or
just south of that
what
area.
about Lake Pavilion? Is that in there?
Yes, it is. Yes, yeah. My
the
grandma
dim
used
sum
to work
spot.
there.
Yeah.
Right. Um, I mean, I want to ask, like, how acquainted are you with like members or like leaders or businesses in that community?
Um, I'm acquainted as just a person who's again walking on the streets in there. But I'm always open to meeting leaders, and if you can make some introductions, I'd welcome it.
Right. And I mean, like, community-wise, like within like the bigger structure of like Flushing and like Queens in that area, like, how connected is Queensboro Hill with like the neighborhoods like East Flushing, Kew Gardens, and downtown Flushing?
I mean, I think the big challenge of places like Queensboro Hill or East Flushing is that a lot of the transit changes, right?
Yeah.
When you talk about Western Queens, you have subways. You got the 7 train, the E, the F, the M. The 7 train goes all the way to downtown Flushing and it stops there. And then everywhere east of there and south of there, you got to take a bus.
All buses,
Like
yeah.
220, and so it makes it tougher to be tightly glued to for those neighborhoods because they're separated. You need a car, or you need to take a long bus ride. So that's actually one thing I definitely want to change. Once I win, I want to make sure that we're investing in transit options. Look, I know the 7 train stops, but can we actually help the mayor with fast and free buses? Can we make sure that it's easier for people, for someone who lives in Queensboro Hill, to get to downtown Flushing and not have to take like 40 minutes in slow traffic? Same thing on going east on northern from downtown Flushing. Sometimes it's super slow to get from downtown Flushing to like Bell Boulevard. Let's say you want to meet some friends there. It can take 40 minutes, an hour. Yeah, so I think we need better public transit. I'm also a big fan of micromobility. It's a fancy word for basically like bikes, e-bikes, scooters. And so we can build out safe ways for people who have those forms of transit to get around. I think that would help connect our communities.
Well, going back to your current campaign, Congressional District 6 is full of a variety of people. We have a massive Korean community, there's a massive Chinese community, obviously in like the Main Street area, but there's a lot of Hispanics living around here too. How do you think that you're going to approach that sort of challenge to representing all of those groups in a manner that doesn't necessarily demean or put one above the other?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. These are the most diverse communities in the world. I mean, you got more than 200 languages spoken in a small land area. You have people from Afghanistan, you have Ashkenazi Jews, you got Polish people, Portuguese people, you have Koreans, Colombians, Venezuelans, Chinese, whether they're from Hong Kong, the mainland, or Taiwan. So it is incredibly diverse. And so one thing I'll say is it's a miracle. Let me just say that we can all coexist here, and not just coexist, but go to school together, hang out in parks together, date each other, and like build families together. Anywhere else in the world with this much difference, we're killing each other. Human beings are not living in peace. But in Queens, somehow we're packed in tight, and despite all that difference, we're doing great. And I think that is a superpower, it's something magical that we have to protect. In terms of how you represent this community, I think, one, you have to meet people where they are. You have to meet people physically where they are, whether it's in their faith institutions or in their languages. And so in my campaign, I've tried hard to make sure I go to as many churches, synagogues, masjids as I can. I went to the Sikh Center the other day on Parsons Boulevard in Flushing. So I want to meet people where they are, in their communities, in their safe places, and introduce myself. I'm also trying to make language access a central part of my campaign. So all my material is translated. For now, it's in English, but also Spanish, Bengali. I I think it's in simplified Chinese. We're working on traditional Chinese. And that's just the beginning. And lastly, I'm trying to use the maximum of my linguistic skills. Like I speak a little bit of Korean, but I also también hablo español casi fluentemente.
Yeah.
I speak Spanish almost fluently. I lived in Mexico for a few years as a diplomat. Lisbon, so também falo português. So I speak Portuguese. So I'm trying to, as much as personally possible, reach out in other languages just to break the ice and show that I'm making an effort to meet people where they are.
That's great. And on that note of community, I would actually like to know like what community resources you would recommend if we were to learn about like niche neighborhoods like Queensboro Hill, or just like the history of like the surrounding areas in Queens, just in general.
And how do we learn about the history of Queens? That's a good question. There used to be an official historian for Queens hired by the Queensboro president. I think every borough has an official historian. And so I actually had the chance to meet the official historian for Queens a few years ago. I am blanking on his name. I wish I remembered right now. It just slipped my mind. But find that person, ask him all the questions about like the origin stories of Queens, because there is so much history. You can also Google. Be careful with ChatGPT; it'll lie to you. But when you think about the history of Queens, you think about like Flushing. Flushing is older than the United States of America. It's been around since before.
1645.
That's right. It's named after a Dutch village, Vlissingen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you guys know your history. Yeah. And then there's like the Quaker Meeting House, Bound House, and this predates the existence of our country. And before that, there were indigenous people, the Lenape, living here for centuries and centuries. They were fishing in Flushing Creek, hunting deer at what is now the Queens Botanical Garden. They were having babies, raising families, celebrating their lives, and also burying the dead. That happened also for centuries. And so this is a place of deep history, deep human history, that goes way back before, again, nations or settlers or colonies. And so to find out about that, find the historian, but also, you just got to be curious about it. Look for it online. Those materials exist.
Wait, could you clip your mic slightly higher?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like
No problem.
Picking up that
Oh,
one.
no. Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah,
On the other side.
looks to be fine. Perfect. And I wanted to talk about your experience as a diplomat. Like you said, you worked in Mexico, in Lisbon, but how did that really shape your politics? How did that really shape just seeing that sort of different political system, that different values that people hold? How did that change you?
It's a really good question. Yeah, over my decade as a diplomat, I was in Mexico, Portugal, Canada, and then I was in DC for a few months at a time in between. And I learned a few things. One, in Mexico, I was a visa officer. I interviewed thousands of people who wanted tourist visas, student visas, work visas, but also people who wanted to immigrant visas. And one thing I learned there is that so much of our immigration policy is totally arbitrary. It makes no sense. I'll give you an example. I was interviewing people for immigrant visas, and the people, it's kind of like a DMV. I have this thick window, and I'm on one side of it. I have a computer system with fingerprints, facial recognition, travel history, and the person on the other side, hands me a packet, and all their hopes and dreams are in that packet. And I'd meet people applying for immigrant visas who are Mexican citizens who want a green card to go to the United States, and they'd come up to my window and they didn't speak Spanish. They spoke fluent English with a Queens accent. Turns out they were born in Mexico, but they grew up maybe in Flushing, maybe in Elmhurst, maybe in Woodside. They went to school at maybe, PS 69 in Jackson Heights, PS 89 in Elmhurst. They watched the same TV shows that I did growing up. They went to the same restaurants. They did all the same stuff that I did. They had the same life as me, but by some accident of their birth, they were on the other side of that window begging me for the chance to return back to our shared home. It felt totally arbitrary. We were we're the same people, and somehow something is separating us. And that something is a broken immigration system. One that doesn't acknowledge that there are millions and millions of people in this country who are already living here, contributing here, working here, many of whom came here by no fault of their own, that are forced to live in the shadows. Maybe they have DACA, but many of them don't. They're undocumented. And I think we need to change that. So one of my big policy priorities is a pathway to citizenship for undocumented people in this country, but especially for these dreamers, for people, again, who are brought to this country by no fault of their own and are already, in my book, they're already Americans. They just don't have the passport to prove it. That was my time in Mexico. I was in Portugal there. I learned about the corporate takeover of the U.S. government. I mean, there. One thing I learned there is wow, every developed country in the world has universal health care except us, Portugal included. But what I learned is a lot of the machinery of U.S. government is used to further corporate interests. And their particular, they wanted to cure this disease called hepatitis C. They had a couple thousand people with hepatitis C. There's a U.S. pharmaceutical company named Gilead that has a cure. And Gilead wanted to sell that cure to the Portuguese National Health Service. The Portuguese at that time had no money to pay for it. So they're like, hey, we'll pay what we can. And Gilead said, no, you're going to pay tens of thousands of euros per dose. And this is a debilitating disease. The poor Portuguese just wanted to cure it. And Gilead, the pharmaceutical company, wanted to make as much money as possible. And then they enlisted the help of the U.S. Embassy and the U.S. government to help them squeeze money out of the Portuguese government. And that was my job in Portugal, in part, to help a big pharmaceutical company squeeze as much money as possible out of the Portuguese government that just wanted to eradicate hepatitis C in their country. And so I saw that, oh, wow, the U.S. government isn't always just standing up for Americans and American interests. It's standing up for American big business. And sometimes to the detriment of foreign people. And so that was a lesson I had there. I have many other lessons, but those are two quick ones.
Well, what do you think would be the most effective way for just normal people like me and Ben to like go out, mobilize in a manner that is not, it almost feels ineffective in the modern era where a lot of protests almost feel like if they're not reported, it almost feels useless. It almost feels like it's not really doing anything. How do you think that the average citizen can mobilize in an effective, meaningful manner?
Yeah. It's really hard. I mean, it's hard to feel like you can actually have some agency over these big things, whether it's questions of like a war in Iran or the genocide in Palestine, or it's even like, hey, how do I, as a student?
I appreciate you calling it a genocide.
Oh, absolutely. It is a genocide. And don't take my word for it. Ask any expert of international law. Ask Lee Mordecai, professor of Holocaust history at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, who calls it a genocide. But it's hard to feel like you as an individual here sitting in Flushing in this coffee shop have agency. How do you affect something that's so big and sees so much bigger and far away from you? And I'd say don't give up hope that you actually can affect things. Like your presence at a protest, your one body there combined with 10 other bodies, 100, 1,000 other people there actually does matter. Your involvement in a hyper-local campaign, like if you want to get involved in my campaign, you having a conversation with a neighbor about that same issue spreads this spark from, right now it's just your lonely spark here, spreads it to another person, who can then spread it to another person, another person, another person. And that's how change can happen. And it has to happen that way. Because the people who want war, the people who want to keep selling bombs to Benjamin Netanyahu to kill families hiding in the rubble, the people who are okay with our broken healthcare system, they are banking on you giving up. They want you to feel like you're powerless. They want you to feel like, oh, my presence at a protest doesn't matter. Because when you give up, the status quo remains and they keep doing the terrible things they're doing. And so they win when we feel like we don't have power. But we do. We do. And it's hard, but it is things like showing up for a protest, volunteering for a campaign, doing a door knocking shift or a phone banking shift. So that's how you spread that spark and you make that actual change.
You want to ask me? Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty difficult subject to pivot to, but yeah, I about these hyper local issues, right? I recall you were talking about when there were floods in basements in Queens, right? And that killed undocumented residents living in those basements, right? And I wanted to ask, like, what other events like that have affected like our local communities? I mean, specifically with Flushing, like Queensboro Hill, that area in mind.
Um, so yeah, it's my knowledge. Hurricane Ida was shocking because like this is a developed country. We're in the richest city in the richest country in the world, and somehow a hurricane and flooding can kill more than a dozen people. Families living here. That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. And so clearly something isn't working. Like someone's making the wrong decisions. If people are living in such vulnerable circumstances that they can die, in flooding of a hurricane in New York City, then something is deeply broken. In terms of answering your question, like what other projects, what other events are shaping these communities locally, I do have to bring up this casino.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
We're gonna ask about it. Tell me what you think. I'll tell you what I think. What do you guys think about?
We both don't like it.
You don't like it.
Tell me why you don't like it.
I mean, having this goes a lot deeper. I have like two reasons. Firstly, we could have replaced that car park with just a normal park, like extending Corona Park, adding some green space, or making like affordable housing. But no, we have to build a casino, right? That will ruin our community. And on that second note, actually, hold on. This is deep. This is deep.
Yeah, we both
I recently read a book. It's a great book, Tong Wars: The Untold Story of Vice, Money, and Murder in New York's Chinatown by Scott Siegelman. I actually did another project on that one. But it specifically talked about how the Tong Wars sort of started off of disputes over these fun time parlors, which were these gambling parlors, like these underground gambling parlors in Chinatown.
Mm-hmm.
And it really reminds me of the fact that gambling is a very destructive force, right? Like organized gambling. Like you can gamble with your friends with like, I'll you just put some food. That's the bet. But I mean like real like gambling, as in there are people at the top who are controlling all these like vulnerable people and essentially ripping them off, right? And then it really hurts the local community, and it really only benefits like one or two people, right?
Yeah.
And then as for me,
all that.
Yeah. I have, in addition to all that, there's also the business practices that come with a casino, where you're essentially building a micro city. You have the casino, you have all these restaurants. I don't know if should be speaking on it, but like the restaurants that are inside the casinos, the banks that are sometimes in casinos, it's sort of like systemically positioned to drain these people of their life savings, their every single cent that they have, and it feels crushing to see that sort of grow in my not even 50 blocks away from here.
Yeah, it's like a 5-minute drive away. It's temple to
that's
gambling.
What's point is not that far.
You heard it here. Casino's a bad idea. So I will co-sign everything you guys have said. One, look, gambling addiction is an addiction. It's a diagnosable mental health condition. And so just like nicotine in cigarettes, it should be regulated. It certainly shouldn't be promoted in such a big way. It's like building a temple to gambling. And it does destroy families. I have friends who have gone to deep debt, who've ruined their relationships, who ruined their family ties because they're addicted to something. They're addicted to gambling. And so I don't think we should be so forward in promoting it. I think that's a huge mistake. And that land is publicly owned. Now I know Steve Cohen has a lease on it, but he bought that lease from somebody else. And as soon as he's not allowed to build that casino, he'll sell it to somebody else. And I think it could be so much more. It's a parking lot. Everyone knows that. It's not a park yet, but it could be. It's not affordable housing yet, but it could be. It could be affordable housing, a school, a community center with a park next to it. Why not that? Anything but a casino would be much better for the public. And then, in terms of like the exploitative ecosystem, that's the whole point. I mean, they design it. They have expert evil geniuses who want to design an ecosystem that keeps you trapped there. So you never have to. Statisticians, data scientists, psychiatrists, psychologists who want to make sure that you never leave, that you can eat there, borrow money there, keep playing, keep dumping your money in that space. And they want to hook you in however they can. Free meal vouchers, free bus tickets. It's already happening. There's a great expose about the Encore Casino in Boston. How they, again, it's a big casino near a big city, and they specifically target Chinese communities. They send the free shuttle right in the heart of Chinatown. They lure them in with the free credits or free meal tickets, and then like some Chinese grandma goes in, some Asian auntie goes in, uncle goes in. They take their first trip there. They play once. They get the little high. They get addicted. They maybe go to the ATM, borrow $20 more, play again, and all of a sudden they're there 5-6 days a week. Instead of hanging out with their families, instead of going to church or doing Tai Chi or whatever, they're zombies in the system that is built to make them into zombies. So I think the casino is a bad idea. And this is one of those things where we're not powerless. We can stop it. It's not built yet. They have a permit, but guess what? The governor could take it away. Kathy Hochul, if you're watching. So this is one where they want you to believe it's inevitable. They want you to think, oh, it's over. Don't worry, it's over. Just take some benefits if you can because it's a done deal. It's not a done deal. Not built yet, so we can stop it. There's a town hall this Saturday, actually, May 2nd.
Speaking of, buildings and other legislation, how do you think we should progress with, New York City District 6 and how, we should develop into the future of, clean energy? I know one of your platforms was the 100, where you want us to move on to, 100% clean energy. What was it? Remove 100% of the energy crisis or the energy debt. And then what was the third one?
Maybe 100% domestic. 100%.
Yeah, 100% domestic.
Yeah. So I think that is, well, one, the climate crisis here. You talked about flooding. Look, we're having climate catastrophe, catastrophic events now. When a hurricane flood can kill many of our neighbors, when there's wildfire smoke every other summer. Like when I was growing up in New York, I don't remember there being wildfire smoke and poison air outside. There's heat.
Sky was red.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's truly dystopian. And that never happened growing up.
Blood red sun.
So the climate crisis is here, and so we need to act now urgently to mitigate and to stop it. And so the best way is renewable energy, wind and solar, as soon as we can. We need to immediately stop fossil fuels. And I think nuclear is a big part of it. Modern nuclear is generally safe.
Yeah.
It's not. I think we've come a long way since 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Modern technology is very safe. It's reliable power. But that also takes a long time to build out. So the fastest deployable and cheapest deployable energy right now is wind and solar. So I think we need to be doing that. Every single one of these rooftops in Queens, I want to see with solar panels. Offshore wind, we should be doing that. And so we need to move to that as fast as possible to fight this climate crisis. So that is urgent, and it doesn't feel urgent because it's just you don't
slow burn.
It's a slow burn.
far.
But then you have flooding that kills a bunch of people, and you realize no, it is urgent.
Yeah, you pay attention to it for 10 seconds, and it goes to chaos.
Just also the pressure from the media, just sort of brush it aside. It happens every day, right?
Yeah.
People almost get sick of it, right? I feel like it's the same thing too for other issues such as gun violence, right? And eventually now I feel like immigration's also felt to be in that news cycle where we've heard of it so much we sort of get sick of it. And there's also one other thing that I want to know from just off personal curiosity. What are your opinions on dams?
Big hydro?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. So I lived in Canada for a while, and a lot of their power comes from large-scale hydro. Basically, they get a lot of snow. That snow melts, every spring and summer, and that melt can turn into a lot of electricity, right? And basically, the reservoir that sits behind a dam is a huge battery. They can open the dam when they need to get the power. They turn the turbines, and they can turn it off, and that's storing energy right there, storing a lot of potential energy. So big hydro is a powerful way to store a lot of energy that doesn't have carbon emissions. There is a big fat asterisk there, and this is true in Canada as much as it is in the United States, which is to build those dams and those reservoirs often very often can destroy some communities that are already there. And I know in Canada, for example, there are a lot of First Nations and Indigenous communities that were totally displaced, their sacred burial grounds flooded and destroyed to build those dams. And so there's still a legacy of that. So if big hydro can be done responsibly in a way that doesn't, again, destroy the cultural heritage of an entire people, then I think it could be it is a powerful way to get, low carbon energy. Now, again, building dams also, you need all that concrete, and so that also creates emissions, and it takes a long time to build. So I still think wind and solar are the fastest ways to get power online, clean power online quickly. But yeah, if you have the conditions like you do in Canada, have big hydro, I think it can be an important source of clean electricity. I want to circle back. You just mentioned something at the beginning of that question: gun violence and something else.
Like immigration.
Immigration, yeah. So I think that's so important. Like if you step outside of yourself, step outside of our desensitization, just think about it objectively. No other country has this gun violence epidemic where hundreds, thousands of people every year die from gun violence. It should be a national crisis. It is a catastrophe that keeps happening over and over again. It doesn't happen anywhere else. These mass shootings, school shootings. I remember the Sandy Hook shooting where a bunch of kids were shot dead by someone with mental illness who somehow had access to high-powered rifles. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. And it should shock the conscience, but we become so desensitized to it. And it's messed up, and we should refresh ourselves, wake ourselves up and be like, yeah, this is horrible every single time it happens. And the solution isn't do nothing and hopes and prayers. It's no, we need to pass gun control reforms. And the same is true, the climate crisis. I think people are just desensitized to it. Yeah, they hear it all the time. And so if you step outside for a second and realize, wait, we're boiling ourselves alive, as we speak. We need to stop that, or there's not going to be a livable planet for my kids or your kids. And so it's hard to shake yourself out of that desensitization and step out and look at something objectively. But it's absolutely true when it comes to gun violence. It's true of the climate crisis, and it's true of immigration. We have 12 million in an underclass in the United States of America, land of the free. But we have 12 million people who are living here who are not free. They're living in, exploitative conditions. They are second-class residents of the society without access to basic rights. And I think that is a deep contradiction that exists today that we need to correct.
Yeah, a question about your policy and budgetary things. I know that a lot of your actions that you've been talking about require congressional budget allocations or some sort of federal grant. How do you have any worries about that on mobilizing the funds or getting support for them? Or do you think that it'll be something that you worry about when you're in office?
So I'm running for Congress because I think that's exactly right. The federal government and Congress are really good at moving big amounts of money. There's a huge budget every single year. And so what I'm not worried about is I think there's now a broad consensus in this country, not even just Democrats, Republicans, left or right. There's a broad consensus that we're not spending our money wisely. We can talk about taxing the billionaires. We need to do that too. But even before we do that, we have money right now that we could use to do a lot of good.
35 trillion.
35 trillion. Yeah. So we have a lot of money right now. We were on this stupid war in Iran that nobody wanted. We spent almost $40 billion already, maybe more.
I think it's almost 60 now.
Maybe 60. And $60 billion could have funded 2 full years of universal child care for every working parent in this country. It could have helped my parents who are on an Affordable Care Act plan with their premiums, which keep going up, up, up. And so we have the resources now, but we have people who are making the wrong decisions. The Pentagon budget's $1 trillion. It's $1 trillion. And it doesn't have to be $1 trillion. You take a thin slice off the top, and all of a sudden, all of us have health care without a worry. All of a sudden, all of us, parents at least, have somewhere safe to keep our kids while we're working. And so we have people in Congress now who are using our resources for the worst things. They're making the wrong decisions. And so when I'm in Congress, I want to make sure that with every power that the House of Representatives and Congress has through appropriations, I want to fight to make sure that money is being used for the benefit of working families in Queens.
I'm expecting a lot of bills with Park co-signed.
Park co-signed, yeah, absolutely.
And last thing about the like community part, right? Because like um, I mean specifically, I want to talk about like like regrounding this back into like the sorry, I just want to reground the conversation back into like community aspect of it, right? Um, I wanted to know like what challenges like the Asian American community, specifically in like the Flushing or area that we've been talking about for a while. What challenges have they faced like historically, like when you were a child, when you were growing up, and what challenges do you think they'll face in the future or even right now?
Um, Asian immigrants, whether you're Korean, Chinese, Thai, Nepali, Tibetan, I think we face the same challenges that every immigrant community faces when they first get here. We're treated like garbage. We're given no support. We're totally ignored by politicians and elected officials. And we have to scrape by on our own and build everything. Build our businesses, build our homes, build our communities, build our churches. And we have to build it all ourselves. And we had to build it all ourselves. I'll give you an example. Back in the 80s when my dad had a small business in Jackson, he still does. There was this incident where the PD, the police came to another Korean store, and there was some argument with a customer and the Korean owner, and the police pulled out the owner and beat the crap out of him. Like true police violence. Look it up. It was called the Cha Ui-te incident. It was written up in the New York Times and local newspapers. The police dragged this Korean small business owner and beat the crap out of him. He was hospitalized with broken ribs. My dad grabbed a bunch of other Korean small business owners, and no, they didn't have connections. No, they didn't, they didn't have a network. They weren't influential, but they said, hey, we're in America. We're allowed to protest this, right? We're not in authoritarian Korea anymore. This is wrong, and somebody will help us. So they met with their local city council member, because the police department is a city issue. They got a meeting with him, and they sat down and said, look, the police beat our friend. We think it was wrong. Like, can we have some help getting justice for him? And the city council member looked at them and said, no, you Koreans, I'm sorry. You don't vote, you don't donate, so I can't help you. And the city council member, that was it. He kicked him out and said, that's it. There's no justice, no help, nothing. And so the Koreans, like my dad and the others in his meeting, were so pissed off because they had this vision of America, the true vision of America, which this is supposed to be a land of justice. It is supposed to be a land where it doesn't matter about your political connections, how much money you have. You're supposed to have basic rights here. They believed in that. They believed in that more than that city council member did. And so they organized, and over years and years, they registered thousands of voters. They showed up to protest. They started doing political donations, and they scraped their rights, and they organized their community to have those rights. And they eventually had some big wins. By 2000, they organized enough that they were able to get Korean included on the ballots as an official language, because they showed that there are enough registered Korean voters. They started doing big fundraising events such that every major political candidate had to show up to a Korean community fundraiser, Korean community meeting, and get the support of the Korean community. And so I think that is the experience of, unfortunately, of every immigrant community that comes here. You come here with nothing, you're treated like crap, and you have to scrape by and fight hard and claw your way to have a space in this country. I wish it wasn't that way, and it shouldn't be that way.
Well, this is one of my more personal questions for you. Not necessarily as a politician or as someone who's running for Congress, but as a constituent of the United States of America. What do you think? Well, I'm pretty sure the answer is obvious, but what do you think of how the Trump administration is handling foreign affairs right now?
Oh my gosh!
I would love to hear. Yeah, I would love to hear this for hours.
He has no idea. Like, there's no plan. That's the crazy thing. I'm old enough to be under George W. to have lived under George W. Bush. He had some evil geniuses in his administration. People like Dick Cheney, who had Halliburton, this like huge defense contractor firm. He was making millions and millions of dollars behind the scenes as he was pushing us into war in Iraq and Afghanistan. This, again, terrible, and this scheme, and there's a plan on how to do it. Trump has no plan, and you see it with this war in Iran. There's no goal. He can't name the goal. First it was end the nuclear program, then it was regime change, Then it was reopen the Strait of Hormuz.
Which after closing it over and
That's exactly right. Like, look,
closing it.
We're 2 months in now. They still have the uranium. Iran still has the uranium. It's the same regime. The Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps is still in charge. I don't see freedom and democracy for those protesters in Iran. And then, the Strait of Hormuz was closed. It was open. It was open before this war.
Time.
It was open up until 2 months ago when we started shooting Tomahawk cruise missiles at Iran. So we've lost ground after spending, $40 to $60 billion.
Concepts of
Yeah.
So concepts of a planet. We've lost a lot of money. We've lost
Maybe
a lot
fragments.
of standing. We also destroyed relationships in the world in the meantime. Like all these allies of ours, NATO allies, people who are ride or die since World War II. Oh, I just pressed the button. Is that all right?
Is it blinking?
Blinking.
Okay, can you click it again? Okay, perfect.
Sorry. These allies, what the heck? We wish you had asked us, or at least told us you're going to do this, because now we're getting crushed by gas prices, by logistics issues with the Strait of Hormuz. Places like South Korea are being crushed by the increase in energy prices. So there is no plan. There's no foreign policy. It's truly just gut and instinct out of this old crazy president.
Like a king almost.
Yeah, a mad king. And we were talking about Biden being too old. I think he was too old. But Trump, I think, is there also. His mind's
He's not that far off.
No.
He's what, only 3 years younger than
He
Biden?
is, and you can tell, he's not. And I think his instinct right now is anything to distract from the Epstein files. It turns out every time that starts trending again, he launches another war. First it was blow up Caracas, and that distracted America for a while, and then it started coming up again. All right, we're gonna go on war in Iran, and the next time someone starts talking about it again, we're gonna invade Cuba or something. I think that is one of his core motivations: self-preservation. That's it. There's no foreign policy.
Yeah, I would also ask, what other events, such as 9/11 or Sandy or COVID-19, COVID-19 especially. This is going back to the community, but how has that affected you and your community, and what can we do about it in the future?
COVID-19. There's obviously just the lack of access to healthcare for so many people, and obviously it's a historic epidemic. But so many of our communities we didn't have healthcare. We couldn't get the care we needed during that time. But also there was this unleashing of anti-Asian hate. People called it the China virus. They called it Kung flu. A lot of people that looked like my mom or my sister were getting cold clocked on the street, kicked on subway platforms, just attacked viciously. And so it showed that when we are in crisis, sometimes Asians are thrown under the bus like that. We're treated as villains, as foreigners, as not belonging here. And so it's really ugly and really painful to see that happen. And so I think it was a painful lesson for us that we need to keep organizing. We need to keep being visible. We need to be outspoken. It's not enough to keep your head down, work hard, and succeed. You got to be out there. We got to be proud of ourselves, proud of our communities. So that's something out of COVID-19 that again, Asian communities, especially in New York City, that we need to be vocal. We need to stand up. We need to just shout that we're here.
Yeah, and just to wrap up on a more positive note, what do you want from us as your constituents now?
Number one, show up. Show up for the causes you care about. If you agree with what I've been saying, then hey, sign up for a canvassing shift. Tell your friends to sign up for a canvassing shift. Help. It's the cheesiest line, but be the change you want to see. You're who you've been waiting for. Show up. And if you're interested in my campaign in particular, it's chuckforqueens.com. Sign up for a shift. I promise it's a good time. I almost always buy our volunteers some pizza just to thank them or something, or choco pie, just to thank you for your time. We're all in the same fight together. So that's something that you guys can do to stay engaged. But if it's not my campaign, find your local community group, your local activists that are fighting for something you believe in, whether it's defending immigrants, joint some mutual aid networks, or it's standing up for for trans kids, like find your local group that's advocating for gender affirming healthcare. If it's standing up for people with disabilities, there are advocacy groups that do that. So find the issue that you care about, find the group, and then show up. Don't just tweet, don't just like it. Like, show up in the real world, and it'll make you feel much more powerful. Like, you'll learn that you're not powerless, that you actually do have the ability to change things.
And
But show up for me.
yeah.
And just our final question in this interview: who else do you think would be willing to speak to us about our communities and to learn about the history of these neighborhoods?
I'd speak to. I hope every other candidate for elected office is willing to speak to you guys. You guys are constituents. You guys clearly care. So if they're not showing up, then that's their problem. They should be here. And look, if you guys want to invite my opponent and me to a debate, an official debate, unofficial debate, we could do it. Name the time, the place, and I will be there. I promise you. So ask my opponent if she'll be there, and I don't think you'll hear back.
Thank you so much for giving us your time. We appreciate it a lot.
No, thank you
very
guys.
much.
Thank you so much.
I had a lot of fun. All right.